In this video, we're going to be building a white label client portal. Now, within this client portal where your client can actually log in under your domain and have it fully white labeled, your client will have a nice dashboard, a quick overview of the different project, such as completed task, past projects, and different graphs to show them how the project's actually moving on. An overview of all the different tasks you're actually working on, whether your client can actually open up and see different information about the tasks, such as the notes, any relevant files, comments, and also their assigned employees. A clear overview of all the different meetings that your actual client is having, where they can go ahead and automatically join the meeting just by pressing a button, and track of all the specific client payments. An important thing to actually mention here is that this is automatically linked to a project management system for your employees. So any changes that you make in your project management system will automatically be relayed here onto the client portal, so you don't have to do anything manually. And a very important fact is that a client only sees the information about the specific project. So you don't have to worry about sharing any data that's not relevant to the client. If you want to learn how to build something like this, then watch until the end because we're not holding anything back. Let's get straight into how you can actually build a white label client portal, which is under the name. You can add it to your phone as a progressive web app and fully customize it to make it white label for your own agency. Let's get into it, guys.
Cool, guys. So the first thing I want to say is client portals don't work for everyone. If you're in a niche where you're dealing with a bit more local business owners, like, I don't know, electricians, doctors, key cutters, maybe even bakeries, for example, it might get a little bit confusing for them. Now, I say this because older generations tend not to do best on any sort of technology. So you don't want to kind of overwhelm your different leads with potentially different things that, once again, may just be confuse them. But if you do find a way to actually make it work, then the benefits you can actually have are immense. So, for example, we work with agency owners. We use client portals because most agency owners are, well versed enough online that they can actually navigate their way through a client portal and how to actually use it. However, if I were working with, I don't know, local electricians, solar panel guys, I wouldn't necessarily feel confident actually bringing them onto the client portal side of things, or even making them use something like Slack, because once again, it can't just get confusing for them. So just a little pointer there, kind of, your niche better than I do, quite obviously. So just have a really hard think of whether it's something that may work in your agency or not, and then let's continue with the video. So this is going to be breaking down into 5 main sections. We're going to first brainstorm what we're doing, then we're going to select the tools we're actually going to be using, then we're going to go ahead and build our user databases, build our actual databases to actually make the app work, and then go ahead and actually begin building the application. The first thing I want to talk about is the actual brainstorm step. Now, in this example, this is quite easy because I already have an idea of what I'm building out for building a client portal, right? But even if you're doing this yourself, this stage is very, very important to really understand what you're actually building, whether it's a client portal or any sort of internal application, which is basically just something that you create for your own agency. So, for example, like a custom CRM or custom project management tool. It's very important you actually brainstorm what you're actually building out. Now, in this example, the desire for this is a client portal. More specifically, we want something where our clients can actually log in, have it being fully white labeled with your colors, your logo, your domain, and allow your clients to track the project process, track any sort of completed or assigned tasks, view past and upcoming payments, and actually view different meetings so they can actually join. The key to this whole thing is that we need to make sure the client portal is actually linked to a project management system, because if it's not, then it won't be updated regularly. So, for example, rather than having two separate entities where you have a project management system for you and your team and a client portal which you manually have to update every single time something changes, like a new task, a new deadline, a new delay, you just have everything synced together automatically. But the key thing there is you want your client only to see the tasks which are actually relevant to them. This is what we're going to be incorporating. And if you watch to the end, I'm going to show you how to actually make this dream of an efficient and really, really sustainable client portal into reality. And just by the way, guys, within our Skill Proof Agency Hub, we have a skill proof roadmap, which is basically a step-by-step guide on how to actually set up skill proof systems. Setting up an internal application is part of what we actually show you there. And within there, I've got 18 plus questions you can actually ask yourself to figure out your current situation. So what you're currently using, the problem of your current situation, your end desire, and then actual solution for it in order to actually create that perfect operating system. Because in reality, a client portal is just a small part of that entire operating system. Yes, it's a great addition to add, but if you're looking for a true solution in terms of operating system for your agency, when it comes to project management, meeting management, different things like that, then this is just the first step. So if you want access to the Skill Proof roadmap, check out the first link in the description for free access. Cool, guys. So now that we've actually brainstormed our application, which, like I said, it won't be too complicated because we already have a really clear idea of what we want to build, we need to talk about the tools that we're actually be using. Now, in this example, for the no-code app builder, I'm going to be using NoLoco. Now, the only reason I'm using NoLoco is because it's what we use in our agency. What we found is that it's the easiest to work for beginners, and you can do so much with it. It's actually unbelievable. The reason we actually use something that's slightly less complex is because at the end of our 6-month program, we take an agency from nothing to scale proof, which basically means they have the sustainable systems to actually be able to scale their agency without affecting the client result, hand everything over back to the agency owner. Now, we obviously do have an option in order for us to maintain it, but we want to give them an option as to, you're not forced into a contract with us. We want to make sure that you have all the tools to actually maintain your own systems. So you're not forced into a maintenance contract, which you won't be a part of. Every time we work with someone, we want the experience to be a win-win for everyone. The reason we chose No Loco out of all the different tools you could have chose, like Bubble.io, software, and there's a couple other ones, is because it's very easy to actually manage. Once you actually build it out, anyone can manage it, guys. And I mean this because I've seen agency owners who have no clue about any sort of no code or even code manage these softwares by themselves. But more importantly, right, the reason we're actually using a no-code app builder is because we want to make this a tailored solution. Don't get me wrong, there's probably softwares out there that fulfill the client portal side of things very, very easily. However, most of these softwares are trying to solve a lot of different problems for a lot of different people. The reason I always advise or at least root for these no-code app builders is simply because I feel like a tailored solution will always beat something that's off the shelf. For example, if you go back to tailored suits, something that's off the shelf is trying to solve a lot of different problems for different people. They might have baggier shoulders to fit the average. They might have, tighter biceps to fit the average. But if you get something that's tailored to your specific circumstances, you can get to choose your own fabric, you can choose your own material, the way it fits. It's perfect solution for your specific scenario. Because the truth is that there's no perfect solution for everyone. Everyone will have their own kind of set of circumstances and different things that they need to have within their own systems, which is why I always like to go down the approach of creating these custom internal applications, because you can really create your own perfect solution. Just to give you a story to really drive this in, I have this problem when it comes to buying suits. I have quite small shoulders, but my biceps are, let's say, above average, right? So when I go to buy a suit from something like Marks and Spencer's, which is a shop that we have in the UK, I find it difficult, right? Because if I find something that fits my shoulders, it doesn't fit my biceps. But if I find something that fits my biceps, it doesn't fit my shoulders. So the tailored approach is kind of the same approach I have to take when it comes to buying suits, which I barely do, in all honesty. But you get that deal. And the same thing can be for dresses, right? If you were to get a wedding dress, you wouldn't just pick something off the shelf. You get something basically tailored to your specific shape if you're a lady. So this is why I kind of advocate for creating your own internal application in terms of the tailored suit. And this is what we're going to be using something like No Loco, which once again is just a no-code app builder to actually build out this client portal. If you have something else, feel free to use whatever works for you. You can still kind of copy the same frameworks and implement it in those specific scenarios. Now that we actually brainstorm what we actually want to build out and gone over specific tools we'll need, it's time to actually begin building this application. And this starts from the users. In general, there's going to be two different types of users that are going to be using the application: internal users and external users. Internal users are going to be people that are within your agency, for example, employees, managers, and executives. External users are going to be individuals outside of your agency, which in most cases are just going to be clients. In this example, we're going to have three different user roles, two internal and one external. The two internal user roles are going to be admin and editor. Admin will have access to all the data, and the editor will only have access to assigned data. The one external role is going to be our clients. The key part of this is that we're going to make it so that our client can only see their relevant data. We don't want clients to see other tasks. We don't want clients to see other projects. We don't want clients to see other meetings. And we definitely don't want clients to see other payments. We want to make it so the client can only see the relevant data that is actually assigned to them. A massive problem with a lot of these software like ClickUp, like Notion, is that it's hard to kind of limit that data sharing. This is what we're going to be doing. We're going to be doing that using different filters, and we're also going to be using that by setting up data permissions in the actual database, so it's physically impossible for the client to actually access other data. I'm very, very big on this because not a lot of software actually allow you to do this, but one of the powerful tools that actually No Loco has is that data permissions, which I'm going to show you how to actually set up, where you can physically limit your clients from accessing different data that's not actually assigned to their project. This is kind of a clear overview, but just be very, very clear. The admin can view all the different tasks and projects and meetings and payments. Editors can only view the assigned tasks, assigned projects, and assigned meetings. And the clients, which is what we're going to be focused on today, can only view their projects, their meetings, and their payments. Now, when you're actually doing this on the larger scale to figure out your own kind of people that are going to be using the application, you want to use this user checklist to figure out who they are, what they actually do, and how they actually do it. And then when you do that, we want to go ahead and actually add them to No Loco. Now, I will say, guys, in this example, I'm not going to be building this completely from scratch. If you've watched my videos before, you would have seen some of previous iterations of the system where we built a recruitment system, a sales pipeline, and a project management system. We're going to be utilizing the project management system and the sales system here, and we're simply going to be adding on to that. Now, I'm still going to show you the behind the scenes of everything else, but I wanted to kind of continue the series because over time, I mean, if you haven't figured out already, we're basically building an operating system from scratch. So I've already recorded a 1 hour video going on the project management side of things, a 2 hour video on the sales pipeline side of things. Depending on how long this video is, we're going to be creating this series and adding to it, where the end goal is just to have a complete operating system where you can copy from scratch. So I'll link the videos in the description if you want to check them out. They're not essential for this video. You can still watch this video and build what I'm showing you today from scratch. However, if you kind of want to be kept in the loop within the series, you can feel free to check them out in the first link in the description. So what we actually want to do is go to Noloco and actually add the users, more specifically client user. So I'm going to go over to the Noloco account and actually do that. All right, guys. So within the Noloco account, you can see this is kind of what we've already built so far, where it's a project management system and also a sales pipeline system. Once again, we're not going to be focusing on this too much today, so don't worry too much about this. We're mainly focusing on the client portal side of things. But if I go over to this little toggle right here, you can see I can switch between different users. I can switch between a team admin, an editor, and a client. Each one of these three different user roles will see different things. If I go over to users and I go over to these three dots in the top right hand corner, I can go ahead and manage roles. Here is where you'll see my client role. Now, a client role is just basic, is not a team member, they don't have access to all the data, and they can't modify the app. I'm going to go ahead and save that role. And if I go back to done and I go back to my database side of things and I go to users, you can see I can now allocate someone with the actual client role. Which if I scroll all the way over to hit a role, you can see I can actually just go ahead and choose someone client. Now, the reason it's important to actually set up these user roles because the way we're actually shaping this is assigning different things to different user roles. So, for example, clients will always be able to see specific pages compared to different admins or even team members. It's very, very important you get your user roles right. So take some time out to firstly figure out what different user roles and different people who actually were using your application, and then you can go ahead and actually implement that within your Noloco application or whatever no-code application software you're actually using. Once again, guys, don't get too focused on the actual specifics. You can still do everything I'm showing you today on different platforms. Might be a bit harder, but you can still do it. If you focus on the frameworks of what I'm actually showing you, you'll get a lot more value from these videos in general. So now that we've actually gone ahead and brainstormed the application, figured out what tools we're going to be using, and actually build our different users, it's time for us to actually build the database. Now, when it actually comes to building database, this is a very important step. In fact, it's probably one of the most important steps in this whole video, because the way these kind of applications work, like Noloco, like Bubble, or just most software in general, is that they're all based off of the database. More particularly for something like Noloco, because all we're doing is just repackaging the database in different forms and displaying the data in different ways. Like I said earlier, guys, I already have an initial version of this from our project management system and our sales pipeline system, but I'm going to be adding the additional benefits of the client portal from scratch. The way to actually do that is by updating the database. Now, a database is made up of three different things. A database table, which is the entire table where I actually store the information, for example, payments table. A record, which is an individual record, so for example, an individual payment. And then a field, which is an individual thing that we're tracking in that record. For example, if I'm tracking payments, a payments table will be my table, an individual payment will be my record, and something like the payment amount will be one of the fields. Another example of a field could be something like the payment name, the payment date, different things like that. A record will have a lot of individual fields that's actually bit tracking. In this example, we already have the project database set out, we already have the task database built out, we already have the employee database built out, we already have the contact database built out, and we also already have the meeting database built out. However, I'm going to be building the payment database from scratch to give you an example of why you can actually do this. And I'll also show you a copy of every single one of these databases. So if you wanted to, you could also build the other side of these things from scratch. So let's go back to the logo and I'll show you the different database that we actually have built out. If I go with the project, you can see this is my project database where I'm tracking different projects. Feel free to kind of stop the video and take any relevant information that you may need. If I go back to tasks, this is my task database. Once again, all we're doing here is just tracking different tasks and the relevant fields associated to it. If you go to employee, this is my employee database. Here we'll track the relevant fields and the specific things we need for each employee, as well as the different link records like linking it to the user. We have the contacts, which is basically going to be our client database. Here we have just an example of different clients with the relevant fields that we're actually tracking. Then we have the meetings database, which once again, quite simple. We're just tracking information from different meetings. And lastly, we have the payment database, which is already built out because this is actually my second time recording this, the first time that audio actually got corrupted. However, we're going to be building this out from scratch to show you how to actually build a database. So if you wanted to, you can do this exact same thing for a different application. For example, if you wanted to create a project database from scratch, then you know how to. So I'm just going to go ahead and actually create a new source. And for the new source, I'm going to be using Noloco tables. Now, a cool thing about Noloco is that you can actually integrate different things like Airtable, Google Sheets, even HubSpot now, SmartSuite, and Xano. However, I always recommend to stay on the actual platform. I don't see the need to use something like Airtable, but if you already have your data in Airtable, then you can have this as an addition. But for now, I'm going to go to the Noloco tables and actually create a new database, and it's going to be payments v2, because after we're going to go ahead and actually delete the payments. I'm going to go ahead and press save, and now it's going to create a new database for me. Now we basically have to go through the process of creating this database from scratch, and I'm going to show you how to do that. All right, so we're going to start with a new field, and the first thing we actually want to track is the amount. So I'm going to go ahead and type amount, and for the actual field type, this is going to be a number, integer, yes, but if you go over, we can change it as a currency. And in this example, I'm going to put dollar. You can obviously put your relevant currency, and I'm not going to allow for any negative numbers. And I'm going to go ahead and add the field. It's very, very simple, guys. Now it's going to load, it's going to update the database, and now we're just going to go ahead, I'm going to zoom in a bit, and we're just going to go ahead and complete this for every single one of the other fields that we're actually tracking. And once again, guys, for context, we already have these fields built out. However, we're just adding the payments database, and I'll have a screenshot of this in the bottom right hand corner as I'm actually building this out so you can get an idea of what we're actually doing. So we've got the amount. I'm going to go ahead and add a new field, and the second one we'll be adding is the actual date. So we actually want to be able to track the payment and when it was actually made. So I'm going to put date, and I'm going to go over to the date field, and I'm going to include date and time. Why not? And I also will use a consistent time zone. That's very important. I'm going to add another field, and this one's going to be for the actual linked client. Now, this is what we like to call a linked field, which is basically a field that correlates to another database. The reason we actually want to have this option is because in some cases, we're going to want to link this particular payment to a specific client so we can actually allow it to come up in their client portals. So I'm going to go over and type link client. And if I go over to the field type, I can scroll all the way down to link to another record. And the actual record or database table I'm actually going to be linking this to is the contacts table, which is basically just the client table. So I'm going to allow multiple records, and I'm going to call this payments v2. Perfect. The next thing I want to add is the actual invoice. Now this is going to be a file, so I'm going to put invoices, and then for the field type, I'm going to scroll down until I see the actual file upload. I'm going to allow for multiple files just in case I have relevant invoices, PDFs, different things like that that are associated to that specific payment. And the last thing I want to add is the actual due date. So we have the actual day of the payment, but we want to make sure to track if any payments are delayed or any different things like that. So I'm going to put due date, and then for field type, I'm going to go over the date and add the date in this case, not the date and time. Perfect. The last thing I actually want to do is two different things. I want to firstly add in the payment status and add in the actual email. Now for the payment status, it's going to be a single option select. So I'm going to go over and choose this and just change this to status. And if I go over to field type, I'm going to scroll down to single option select. And this is where I can add in different options. Now in this case, I'm just going to put it as upcoming, paid, and delayed. You can obviously add more fields according to your specific circumstances, but this is all I'm going to be adding. And the last thing I want to do is add in the email. So if I go over to email, and for this is going to be text, it's going to be an email address. And in this example, I'm not going to put the field as unique because we're going to be tracking multiple different payments. So for example, let's say you have a retainer, right? You're going to be paid 3 different times from the same email. If you go ahead and actually make a unique field, when you try to add another payment, so for example, the second month and it's under the same email, it won't let you actually add that. So we definitely want to tick that. So we're going to go ahead and add that field, and that's pretty much it. We've now gone ahead and created our database. What we actually want to do now is actually import our database. Now, there's 2 different ways to do this. The first one is you just manually fill in the data, but because we have about 7 different fields, and we're going to be doing this for about 30 different records, that we don't want to manually go through and add the different data. So in this case, we're going to be using our good friend ChatGPT. Now, in order to actually do that, we're going to be using this very, very simple prompt. Now, I've already done this in a previous video, so I'm just going to be uploading it. However, all you have to do is go to ChatGPT, enter this simple prompt, and you want to change these specific fields with the relevant fields that you created. So if you're doing exactly what I'm doing, the fields would be these fields all the way up here. So the amount, the date, the link client, the invoice, the due date, the payment status, email, different things like that. I added a screenshot of the ChatGPT prompt when I actually did it, but for now, let's go over and actually upload our database. Once I've actually gone ahead and created our data, I'm going to go over to import data. I'm going to go ahead and select that CSV record. As you can see, the logo is actually kind enough to automatically just import the data into the relevant fields. So we have the amount already mapped out, the date mapped out, the due date mapped out, the payment status mapped out, and the actual email mapped out. So I'm going to go over and press import. Now, in order to actually know if you've done this right, all you have to do is just reload the page. If it doesn't reload with your data, especially when we're doing a little amount of data like 20 units, then if you've got something wrong, you should get a confirmation email letting you know exactly what you've done wrong. So make sure to check that out and then make any adjustments from there. In most cases, it's usually because you've linked the wrong field to the wrong area. Another tip I'll give you is don't automatically link different linked fields. You're going to have to do that manually because it can get very, very messy. Cool, guys. So apart from that, we've gone ahead and actually created our database, which has made some massive progress about. I'm very happy. Once again, guys, if you are starting this from scratch, you would have to create the different databases, like the project database, which I've already shown you, the task database, which I've also shown you, the employee database, the contact database, the meeting database, and also the user database. However, in this example, because we already did that in previous videos, I'm just going to carry on. But I hope this kind of example of the payment database gives you an example of how you can actually go ahead and use the exact same frameworks and skills to build your own databases, which are relevant to your specific situation. Once again, if you wanted to copy the rest of these, you can check out the links in the description, or you can just pause the previous section and just copy the data that I already have. All right, guys. So now that you've actually gone ahead and brainstorm application, chosen the tools we're going to be using, selected different users, and actually built a payments database, it's time we actually start building an application. Now, this is going to be broken into 5 different stages. And firstly, we're going to start with the navigation. Now, once again, there's 3 different views that we need to have here. So there's 3 different navigation we need to have. There's an admin navigation, there's an editor navigation, and there's a client navigation. And if I go over to the local, I actually want to show you what this actually looks like in action. So if I go over to my app and I go full screen, I can go ahead and show you just by switching different views, they will see different things. So from an admin view, I see this bar where we can see my project, my tasks, and all the projects, all the tasks, and also the sales breakdown and the meeting breakdown. However, if I switch over to an editor, you can now see I only see my projects and my tasks, as well as some more information. Because once again, the editor should be able to see the relevant data associated to their specific account, which in this case is just their specific projects. We're going to do the exact same thing, but rather than it being editor or admins, it's going to be for clients. Once again, we want clients to only see their relevant situation. So for this example, what we actually want to do is create this specific navigation. The home page is going to be just a kind of a welcome page to kind of welcome into the platform. We see on more software. The My Project page is going to be kind of an overview of where the project actually is. Project task page, show them the specific tasks on their project, upcoming meetings, different payments, which allow to track different payments, and a need help page, which should basically just be a link to actually book a call. We're going to be building out from scratch. So if I go back to my database, we can go ahead and actually begin building a navigation. Once again, guys, I have built the different navigations in previous videos for both the team admin and the editor side of things. So you can check those out in the description if you want another example of how to build this from scratch. All right, cool. So if I go back to the logo, as you can see from a client view, I can't see much. So we're going to go back over to the build mode and actually edit. These are all the different pages for all the different users. So I'm just going to go ahead and actually create the different pages for the specific client role. Now for the home page, I'm going to leave it as this dashboard, which is already empty. So all we have to do is add the project page, the task page, the meeting page, the payments page, and the quick link page. So to do this, I'm going to go ahead and actually press this plus button right here on the left hand side. And here I can see a bunch of different options. I can automatically link different databases. However, at least for now, for this specific kind of main project page, I'm going to go with a blank page. Now, it may be the case that later on I just change this, but for now, I'm just going to leave it to a blank page. I'm going to rename this my project. The key thing I want to do here is go all the way to the right hand side. And then for visibility, I want to set it to clients and then only access it for user roles that have the actual client user role. Perfect. And I'm just going to go ahead and move this at the very start here. Perfect, guys. The next thing I want to add is actually project tasks. Now for that, I'm going to once again add a plus button. In this case, it's not going to be a blank page. It's going to be a straight task overview. So I'm just going to press the task table, which will have all that information. I'm going to rename this to project tasks. Press this plus button, and then once again, I'm going to go over to visibility all the way on the right hand side and change this to clients, and then with the client user role. And I'm just going to go ahead and drag this right here. Perfect. Now I'm going to do the exact same thing for meetings. I'm going to press the plus button, and this time I'm going to go for the meetings table, and I'm going to rename this my meetings. Press the check mark button, and then if you go back to visibility, I'm going to set it to clients, and then with the actual client role. Now I'm going to move this just under the project tasks. One more thing I need to add in this section is the payments page. So if I go to plus once again, and I go over to payments v2, which is the database I'm going to be using, I'm going to bring it all the way back up here. And I'm going to rename this to payments, as well as changing the visibility all the way on the right hand side to clients with an actual client user role. The last thing I actually want to add is a need help page. So for that, I'm going to add another page, and it's going to be an external link. And in this case, you can go ahead and put whatever link you want. But if I would do it, I'd put a link to the Calendly so they can actually go ahead and book a call. So need help question mark and just leave as a tick. And once again, you're going to say it as clients. So choose that, choose the need help page, and if you go over to visibility, clients with the client user role. Perfect. So if you go back to our field, and as you can see, if we go to the users, I'm currently on a client view. You can see I can see all the different pages from the dashboard, the My Project page, the tasks page, the meetings page, the payments page, and the need help page. And once again, at the moment, it's just showing a bunch of random information. But as we actually begin building an application, you'll really see this come to life. The navigation is a very, very important part of this entire database because it's how your different users are going to be navigating their way around the application. So it's important that you spend some time making it as clear as possible and actually set up the right visibility, because you don't want different people to see the different things that they shouldn't. But in this case, I'm very happy with this. We can actually move on to actually building the main pages. Now, in terms of the main pages, as you've probably already seen, there's a bunch of different examples of what we can do. We can have blank pages where we can really shape it and make our own with different things like graphs and different collection views. We can have project boards, where it's basically a Kanban board, which is what we're going to be doing for our tasks. We can have a calendar view, and we can also have different things such as have multiple of different collection views. We're going to be using a combination of all these different types of pages in this build to give you as many examples as possible as to what this can actually look like properly. I will kind of give a little parenthesis, guys, that I'm doing this within 1 hour or however long this video is. So there's definitely a lot of room for expansion here. However, with everything I do in my channel, I try to make it as beginner friendly as possible. So it'll be easy for anyone at any sort of level to just come and take this and implement it directly into their agency. So there's definitely a lot more you can add to these different systems. However, you can still make a lot of progress and learn a lot from just implementing exactly what I'm showing you in these videos. So let's go ahead and actually build these different main pages. If I go back to my application, I can go ahead and choose any of these different pages and actually get started. We might as well go ahead and start with payments. Now, at the moment, this is showing us a collection view, which is fine, but I want to change it a bit. I'm not against the table for payments. I think it's a clear way to actually display the information. However, I think there's ways to make it a bit more clearer. So for some reason, data's not reloading, so I'm just going to go ahead and reload the page and make sure all the data is actually loading appropriately. Once I've done that and I go back to my client view, just by going over to the user section and switch it over to the testing user, which is the client, I go back to the payments, and you can see I can see a bunch of different payments which are not really associated to me, so I don't really care about this. So in order to actually firstly change that, I'm going to go with options, and then in terms of filter, I'm going to put all, and then for the actual filter, I'm going to scroll down to linked client is one of, and then if I go to logged in user values, I can go to contact and the contact actual ID. Now, at the moment, this is not going to display any data because we don't have anything set up in our payments database, right? But if I go back to the actual database, and firstly, I check who my link client actually is, which in this example is Leo at Fluxomate. I can go back to my payments database. And if I link a couple records to the actual client, just by going like this, and going like this, and going like this, and this is an example emails, guys, or like this. And now if you go back to our database, you can see those data points will have been filled out just like that. Now, guys, I will say this is an example of a filter. Later on in the video, I'm going to show you how to actually set up data permissions. So it's not just kind of hiding information, but it's physically impossible for the client to access it with the data permissions. But for now, we're going to go ahead and continue with the filters. Now, the reason this is kind of black is because of the actual color of this specific platform. If you wanted to kind of white label it a bit more to your preferences, you can go to settings. And if you go to theme and design, you can do different things such as change the color, different things. You can even choose your own custom colors, toggle between light and dark mode. And then if you go here, you can also do different things like add the different logos and different things like that. But I'm just gonna leave it as the greenish for now so you can actually see it. If I go back to edit, let's go ahead and actually continue building this. So for this specific example, I don't think it's necessary to show every single one of these pieces of information. So for that, I'm gonna go to the fields in the right-hand section and I'm gonna start removing some of these. The date I'm gonna leave, the link client I'm gonna leave because this is a client portal. They don't even necessarily know who the link client is because in all cases it's going to be themselves. I'm going to remove also the invoice side of things, the due date, payment status I'm going to leave, and I'm also going to remove the actual email. Perfect. So just a kind of really summarized view of the data. I'm also going to head and see if I can change this. So for example, for the actual, so I want to leave it as that. There's not too much for me to show. As you can see, there are different options. You can have it as a row, as a pivot table, a timeline, a Gantt chart, project board, cards, but I think table's fine. I might actually change it to a grid just to make it so you can kind of separate it in different sections. And that's pretty much it for this page. Now, as you can see, we have this new payments button. If I go ahead and click it, it will take us to actually create a new payment. This is not necessary because the clients will be adding any payments. So to actually remove that, I'm going to scroll down and where I see the actual, or in options maybe, and I'm going to remove that new record button so they can just see the payments. I'm going to also go ahead and back to general and rename this to my payments. And yeah, that's honestly pretty much it for this page. Not too much we need to add. Once again, this is just showing the payments for this specific client. When we go on to one of the last stages where we're going to be adding different additional touches, I'm going to show you how to add different things like buttons, different filters, different things like that, and also different forms. But for now, I'm just going to go ahead and leave that. Maybe the only thing I might add, if I go to options, I can go ahead and add different record colors, which I'm going to do in a second actually, but I'm going to add a filter. So if I go over here, I can add a filter for the actual payment status. So it's very easy for a user to actually come in, check the different payments, and then filter by different payment status like upcoming, delayed, paid, different things like that. Oh, cool, guys. That's the payment section done. Now, a cool thing about this, right? If you go ahead and click any of these, it'll bring you over to an actual individual payment page where you can see so much more information. In this example, I will be building out the individual payment pages, but I first like to build all the main pages first and then dive into the individual pages. So let's move over to the My Meeting sections. Once again, at the moment, this is showing us all the different meetings for every single one of the users, which we don't really care for. It's not really valuable for us. So instead, I'm going to go over and set a relative filter. I'm going to put all. And then if I go over to add this, I'm going to go over and select the field linked client. So assign contact. I'm going to put is one of, and then I'm going to put the logged in user, contact, actual ID. Now it already show us the actual meetings, which is assigned to this specific member. Perfect. That's the first step of things done. The second step is I don't like this table view for meetings. I think it should be a calendar view. So to do that, I'm just going to change this over to a calendar view. And now you'll be able to see the different meetings. And this month, there's not any, but if we keep on going back, hopefully we'll find some. Let's see. What were the dates for this? Well, it looks like it was a couple months ago. So I don't want to go all the way back. However, this one should be in September. So if we go back to calendar and I actually set the start date to the actual day of the meeting, I should be able to find it just by scrolling one to the left or one to the right. Let's see. So June, August, there you go. So that's an example of a meeting. And if you open it up, you can see much more information. This is cool, but once again, I don't need to show all these different information in this page. So if I go with the fields, I'm going to start hiding some of this. So the date we don't need to show because if you open this up, the date is already there. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that. I'm also going to go ahead and remove the meeting name. I will leave the meeting type. I'll leave the duration. I'll remove any notes. I'll include the meeting link. However, for the meeting link, I'm going to go ahead and display it as a button. So as I give you an example, if they want to join the meeting, they can go press that. I'm going to change that to join meeting. I'm going to open it in a new tab. And I also only want to show this button when the actual link actually exists. So for that, I'm going to go to all. I'm going to go to meetings and I'm going to go over to the actual meeting link. And I'm going to put for the operator is not empty. So let's see. At the moment, this does have a meeting link. So if I go ahead and press that, it will allow me to join the meeting. However, if it didn't have a meeting link, this button wouldn't exist. Let's see if we can find an example to actually show you guys. Cool. So this also has a meeting link, but if I go ahead and update the database, so the frontline foreground toolset, meetings, frontline, this one right here, and I go ahead and actually remove that specific meeting link, and we go back to our calendar, and we go back to that individual card, which was back in May. You can see that join now button doesn't exist anymore because of that conditional filter we actually set up. Perfect, guys. The only thing I want to change is I don't need to necessarily see all the different assigned contacts, assigned employees if they don't exist. So for assigned employee, I'm going to go ahead and remove that and only show it when the assigned employee actually exists just by going to meetings, scrolling down to assigned employee, choosing an ID. I'm going to put is not empty. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the assigned contact, only show when conditions are met. Go over to meetings, scroll over to assigned contact, ID, and then once again, is not empty. Perfect. So now, for example, this is a bit cleaner than our previous version. If you go back to this one as well, we can see all the relevant information if it actually exists. Cool, guys. Very, very happy with this so far. Once again, guys, if we actually open us, it will take us to the individual meeting pages where you can see much more information about a specific meeting or the different employees that are actually there. However, we're not going to be working on this just yet because I first want to finish all the different main pages. A couple of things I want to change here. The first thing is I actually want to remove that new meetings button. I don't think there's any need to have this because once again, they might even request new meetings, but if they didn't want to do that, it would be straight through Calendly. So I'm going to go ahead and actually remove this new record button and we'll add different filters, however. So if I go over to filter fields, I can go ahead and allow them to actually filter by the meeting type by going over there. And just like that, if you wanted to filter, in this case, not too many meetings, but let's say we had a lot of meetings, they can actually filter by these different kind of meeting types. Perfect, guys. You can also add a different search box if you want to do, so you can search for a specific meeting. But in this case, I'm just going to leave it. I'm just going to go ahead and actually rename this to my meetings. And I'm going to go ahead and actually remove the breadcrumbs. So I'm just going to leave it as that. Cool, guys. I'm very, very happy with this. Let's keep on pushing. The next thing we want to do is actually the project tasks. Now, in a similar fashion to the previous 2 pages we've done, at the moment, this is showing us every single one of the tasks in our whole database. We don't want that. We just want to show the relevant tasks for our specific client. So to do that, I'm going to go over to options. I'm going to set up another filter just by going over to relative filter, selecting all, pressing the and button, and going over to this little toggle. And then for the field, I'm going to scroll all the way down to the assigned project. And I'm going to put is one of, and then I'm going to put logged in values, contact, and then scroll all the way down to the assigned project ID. Now it's only going to show us the actual tasks which are assigned to our client's specific project, which in this case is just one. All right, we're not just done with this page just yet, because once again, I don't need to leave it in a table. I'm going to go with the general and change this over to a board. This is what you call a Kanban board. And as you can see, it's split into 3 different sections: backlog, in progress, completed. So if we go over back here, I'm going to change this now to first to last, so it just shows it in order. And once again, I don't need to see every single one of these start points within the actual field task. You know, once you start getting a lot of tasks in a specific page, it's going to look so clunky. There's no need to actually have this. So if we go over to fields, we can actually start removing this. I will leave the task name, but I'm going to change this by removing the label and actually making it a bit bigger. So I'll put heading 4 maybe, just to make it a bit bolder, right? The start date, I'm also going to remove. I will leave the due date because that's quite important. I'm going to remove the task notes. I'm going to remove relevant files. I'll remove relevant links. I'll remove the status as well because it's already displayed there. I will leave the task type, and I will also remove the assigned project because once again, the only tasks that are actually being displayed here is the tasks from this specific project, so there's no need to actually do that. But I will actually leave the assigned employee collection, but I'm just going to rename this to assigned employee. Perfect. I could add different information, but for now I'm just going to leave it. I'm very happy with this. The only thing I might change is add the last updated date. So if I go ahead and actually toggle this on, and in order to actually do this, I'm going to leave it as a relative date. But in this example, it doesn't exist. So I'm just going to go and set another filter so that it only shows when it actually displays, just to avoid having this little empty line. So I go over to task and I scroll down to the updated at. I'm going to put is not empty. So now it only displays, oh, is not empty, sorry. So now it only display when there's actually something there. Perfect, guys. But so for example, if I go ahead and update this, that should count as an update. And as you can see, it now says in 0 seconds because I put it as a relative date. Now, I'm not against having this new task button here. I'm actually not. However, it's very important to mention that we're going to be touching this up. Within this, you can create different things like forms, and this form is not really optimized at the moment. There's too much going on. When we actually move on to the additional touches, we're going to creating different things like record buttons, different highlights for different cards, depending on different circumstances. We're going to be amending this form to actually make it possible for them to actually request a task. But for now, let's just leave it as this. The only thing I might change is with the general and go over to the actual name. I'm going to change this to project tasks. I'm going to go ahead and actually remove the breadcrumbs. And yeah, pretty happy with that. Now let's go over to the My Project page. Now this is probably going to be the most complex page we're actually doing because it's not a collection view, which is similar to the pages we just seen a second ago, but this is just a blank page that we're going to be adding onto. Now, the reason I actually want to do this is because I kind of want to create a mini dashboard for this specific project, which shows different project information. This can be different things like the tasks, different meetings, different payments, different things like that. In order to actually do that, the best way to do it is actually using a blank page, and within that blank page, you have in different containers. So the way I always like to structure this is I have 25% here, and having another container with 75%. And on the left-hand side, I like to put different graphs to kind of showcase different information that may be relevant. Now, one cool thing about the low-code and most no-code application tools as well is that you can add different graphs. If I go over to the actual chart section and I choose a random one, so let's say for this example, I want to choose task, I can go ahead, or actually project maybe in this example, sorry. So if I go back to, where is it? Charts. And the list view is going to be project. I can go ahead and add so many different charts. As you can see here, we have a line chart, bar chart, funnel chart, gauge chart, a pie chart, radar chart, and even different statistics. So I'm going to go ahead and drag this in the first container because we're actually going to be displaying it here. Now, otherwise, this is obviously very squashed. And once again, it's showing information for all the different projects, which you don't really care about. So if I go back to this actual collection for the actual charts, I'm going to go over to options. So in order to actually set up that specific filter, we're going to go over to logged in user and then go to the contact and choose the assigned project. So now only show the information from the assigned project. At the moment, this is completely unformatted, right? But if we go with the charts, for example, we go ahead and change this to firstly making it full so you can actually see more information. And then we can go ahead and choose different things such as the actual, let's see, assign tasks, assign task count, and then we go over to count. And then for series, we just go ahead and actually choose the ID. You'll see we only have one task for this specific project, which is why there's not much data in the actual graph. Once again, the important part here is that we're only showing the client the information about their relevant project, not about every single one of the projects. And we do that by using filters. And we're also going to enhance this later on by using different things from like data permissions in the actual database. So it's physically impossible for the client to see data which is not relevant to their specific project. Cool. So I'm going to go ahead and actually change these different charts. So firstly, I'm going to go and change this one to a statistic. Just want to show the actual count of the different tasks we actually complete. In this case, it seems like there's two, but I believe there's only one. So I'm going to change this to sum, and there you go. It should only be one. I'm also going to change it to 50%, as well as adding a table to tasks. I'm going to go ahead and add another chart, and in this case, it's going to be another statistic. And as you can see, we have a bunch of different metrics to display. I would personally put the retainer. However, there's so many different options. I mean, I don't even know anymore. Yeah, let's put the retainer for this actual project. I'm going to put sum, and now actually show a specific retainer, and I'm gonna put project retainer. All right, guys, so this is quite cool, but I do want to add some more information in the actual charts, which we won't necessarily get from the specific project. So for this, I'm just going to add another collection within the same chart. I'm going to choose another chart. Now, the reason I'm doing this is because I can get more information from the different collections rather than just staying specifically on the actual task or the project collection, sorry. So if I go over to the actual charts, once again, here I can choose a different collection. And let's say in this example, I wanted to do meetings, right? If I go with the meetings, and once again, for the actual filter, I'm going to put logged in user contact meetings collection. I want to be able to track the different meetings over a period of time. So if I go with the charts, I can go and choose this. I'll leave a line chart. Why not? I'm going to change this to full. And now we've actually gone ahead and create that. We can actually filter by different things. So for example, here I just want to show the actual number of meetings that we're actually having. So if I go over to the ID and I put count, and then I'm going to change this, or maybe the x-axis should actually be the meeting date. So if I scroll down here to the meeting date, and for the time period, I'm going to group by month, and there's going to be a count metric once again. And then for the series, I'm going to go ahead and choose the ID. Now will basically show us the amount of meetings we're having every single month. At the moment, it looks like we had one meeting in March, one meeting in May, and then one meeting in August. Once again, this isn't the best representation of data. However, we can actually go ahead and change that. If I go with the data, when I go with the meetings, and I link a bit more meetings to the actual user, which in this case is Leo Fluxomate, just by going over. I should be able to just go like this and just copy and paste it in. Maybe not. Of course, if I go to assign contact and I just choose Leo Fluxomate, I'll do it for a couple more meetings. We should see that data actually updating on the actual graph. So we'll go back here and then I'll go back to application. Now you can see we have a bit more meetings at different places, such as August, June, November, and different things like that. Once again, if I wanted to, I could also change the different things, such as a bar chart, right, to show different meetings in different months. But for this example, this is just one meeting a month, basically, for these different months. It's not going to affect the data that much. The only thing I want to do when you're actually making titles, I want to actually name this. So I'm going to put meeting frequency. Perfect. So the last collection I actually want to add is basically going to be a pie chart to show the different completion stages of the different tasks. So I'm going to add another chart, and for this one is going to be the task page. And within actual charts, before we actually set up the filters, I want to show you what this could potentially look like. So I'm going to change this to full. I'm going to go ahead and change this to the actual task type. I'm going to change this to pie chart. So you'll be able to see all the different task types. Right now it's grouped in by date, but if I go ahead and change this to count and we go back and just change this to ID, you'll be able to see the different task types, which basically sums up the different information. Now it's pretty squashed right now because I'm in the editor view, but if I go back over here and just change it, you'll see it looks a bit better. Oh, the pie chart is a bit more full, right? But let's keep on going because at the moment, this is showing us the information from every single task, which once again, we don't care about. This is a client portal. We all want to show the client information for their specific task. So I'm going to go over to options. I'm going to set up a relative filter. And if I go over to and I'm going to add an and filter, field task, we'll scroll all the way down to the project is one of, and then choose the logged in users value contact, and then the actual project, which is right here. Perfect. So now once again, it's only going to show us the tasks which are associated to this specific project, which in this case is just one. But if we go back to our database and I assign a bit more tasks, just double check which project that actually is. In this case, it's Leo at Fluxomate, which is the Jones Lee because of project or task, sorry. And I'll assign a bit more by scrolling all the way to the right and just changing a bit more. So record 19 GB or Jones Lee again, Jones Lee and Jones Lee again. If I go back to our graph now, once again, we should see that data actually being updated. Not just this data, but also the project tasks, because we have more now to actually look after. Cool, guys. So far, I'm very, very happy with this. The only thing I want to add here is more information on the right-hand side. I'll leave the graphs for now. Obviously, you can change the different graphs to however much you want. There's so many different things you can do. But for now, I want to add a couple more things. Firstly, a very important I actually forgot to do here is actually label this graph. So I'm going to put project tasks, perfect. And I don't know how the labels outside, so I'm just going to go ahead and delete this because I've actually labeled it in the wrong place. And if I go ahead and delete this and go over back to the chart side of things and choose chart one and go ahead and enter here, project tasks, and I'll just clean this up just by going back to general and just deleting this just like that. Perfect. Cool. Let's add some more information here. There's a bunch of different things you can do. So if I go to add a section, you'll be able to see I can add titles, collections, details, highlights, so many different things. I think I'm going to go ahead and start off with the highlight, which will basically just highlight different information from that specific project. So I'm just going to go over and add the highlight in the actual container. And then I'm going to show recently completed tasks and recently delayed class, I guess. So if I go over here to the highlight section, I want to go to fields, and you can see we have so many different fields from the actual project page. So within the actual containers, we can add so many more information from collections, highlights, charts, even iframes, buttons, links, text, so many different things. But I think for now, the first thing I want to do is actually show completed tasks. So if I go over to the task section side of things, I'm going to put it as a column, and this is going to be our completed tasks. So two different fields we need to set up. We need to set up so it only shows the relevant tasks to the specific project, but then we also have to set up so it only shows the completed tasks. So if we go to relative filter, I'm going to put all, and two different fields need to set up. So I'm going to go and the first one's going to be the same one we've done so many different times today, where it only shows the assigned project is one of, and then choose the assigned project from the logged in user's value just by doing this. But the second filter we need to set up, which is kind of an additional to the and filter, is only show completed tasks. So I'm going to head and add a condition group, or sorry, just add another filter. So it's and for the actual task status, I'm going to is equal to, and then have it as completed, because I only want to show completed tasks here, which in this example is just one. I also, once again, need to go ahead and touch up different fields. So I'm going to do a similar thing we did last time where we removed the label and changed it to a header just to make it very, very clear. I'm going to leave the start date. I'm going to go ahead and remove the start date. I'm going to keep the due date. I'll remove the task note, and I'll also remove any relevant files. But I do want to add the task type as well as the status just to confirm that that task has actually been completed. Cool. Now, in this example, it's just one. However, when we have more, it may be a bit crowded. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure there's only a maximum of 10 tasks here. And in terms of the actual sorting, I'm going to make sure the updated date is newest to order. So it shows the most relevant recently completed tasks right here. I'm also going to go ahead and add a label just by going with the general and add it in completed project tasks, and that'll be the first half of things. Now what I would also potentially do is, if you go over to the container, I do want to add a little kind of hider section, I guess you can call it a title section, and just by moving it up here, I'm gonna name this the actual name of the project. So if I go over to the logged in user profile and I scroll all the way down to contact and I open up the assigned project, you can see the relevant account, which you don't really care about, is not too relevant. So instead, we're just going to put the actual name of the actual user. So I'm going to put first name, and then I'm going to put assigned project. So in this case, it's testing user assigned project. And then for the subtitle, I'm going to put a quick overview of what we have been working, exclamation mark. Obviously, guys, once again, this is just a very, very beginner-friendly example. There's so much more you can add to this, different layers of complexity, such as adding a different project name in the actual title, different things like that. However, that's a video for another day. The last thing I basically want to add here is some more information about the actual project. I could include meetings, I could include payments, I could even include another task section. I think the best thing to do here is add just upcoming meetings that are actually coming up, or past meetings potentially. So if we go over to the actual cards for the collections, and I'm going to go ahead and choose the actual meetings. Here I can go ahead and just see every single meeting, which once again, we don't really care about. So I'm going to go ahead and add a relative field. So the actual meeting, if you scroll down to the assigned contact, is one of, and then for the value, I'm going to go ahead and actually choose this specific contact and just the ID. So now it only shows the meetings for this specific contact. It's quite a lot of meetings, which I'm not against, to be honest, and it does make the page look a bit more full. And what I actually do in this example, because we have a header here, I'm going to go ahead and actually swap these two different columns. So I've got this on the right hand side and this on the left hand side, just to make it a bit more intact, because we have the title right here. Another thing I will do in the actual title, I want to go ahead and actually add that profile picture of the actual user. So if I go over to the image URL, I can go ahead and actually have it as a field. And then I should be able to get it from a profile picture of the user, which in this case, I don't think it exists. However, if it did exist, it will come up right there. Cool. So this is the kind of information. Let's go ahead and clean this up, and then we can move on to the dashboard page, which will be the last main page of this whole situation. And then after that, we're going to go ahead and actually create the main pages, or individual pages, sorry, which once again, if you don't know what that is, when we go ahead and click any of these pages, we come to these individual pages, which in reality, this is where most of the work is actually going to be going on. So as soon as we finish these main pages, we're going to go ahead and actually optimize those individual pages. Cool, guys. So I'm going to go back to edit, back to my project side of things, and let's quickly clean this up so we can actually move on. So my project. So there's a lot of information going on with these different meetings, which once again, I don't necessarily need to show or want to show. So I'm going to go over and click the collection and go over to fields, and I'm going to hide some information. Meeting name, I'll keep. The meeting type, I'll leave. I'll remove the notes, and I'm also remove the meeting link, because the idea for this is just to have meetings that happened in the past. So in order to actually do that, I'm going to add an and filter. I'm going to choose the actual meeting date as the field. I'm going to put is before or equal to, and then here I'm going to put relative date, today's date, now. Now it only shows meetings that actually happened in the past. Cool. Once again, some information I don't want to keep, but I'm not going to go too much in detail for this. We kind of did that already. The only thing I do want to change is I want to add a title, which is past project meetings. And I also want to go ahead and remove this button because we won't necessarily be requesting new meetings. So if I go over back here to options, I'm going to remove the new record button, and I'll do the exact same thing for the task button. However, in the next step, we're going to be setting up a button to automatically allow the user to request different tasks. I'm just going to leave it as that. Cool, guys. So this is kind of like our project dashboard page. Once again, there's so much more you can add there from different charts, different kind of collection views. But for now, I'm happy with this. Let's move over to the first kind of initial welcome dashboard on the actual client portal, which is going to be follow a similar approach to the other one. However, it's not going to be nearly as complicated. So the first thing I'm going to do is add a title. And this is going to be, once again, similar to the last bit, where we're kind of welcoming them to the actual platform. So I can put first name, welcome, or I can put, sorry, welcome, and then the first name. Seems to be bugging out for some reason. So I'll go back here. Doesn't seem to collaborate with me today. Welcome. There you go. And the testing user, obviously, in this example, is the name of the actual person. And then for the subtitle, I'm actually going to leave the subtitle empty because I don't think there's any need to include that. I will add a URL, which once again is just going to be the profile picture, which, if you go back to the actual database and we go find a specific contact, which in this example, or the user, actually, sorry, I'm going to go ahead and add a profile picture so you can see what it actually looks like. So I'm going to add a random profile picture. Let's see here. I'll go ahead and add myself. If you go back now, you can see we have that profile picture right there with a nice little green background. And honestly, there's so much different things you can add to this, but the main thing I want to do is add different quick links. So they're already kind of set up for us. If you go down to links, add quick links, they have this nice little page where you can add different links to different pages. So for example, this one could be see my project, and I'll actually just change the link to page. And then for the page, I'll choose the my project page by scrolling down and going over here. So now once they actually come to the dashboard, when they actually get welcomed, they can just press to see my project page and it will automatically take them to their specific project. Similar thing for the other ones. And I'm not going to do each one individually, but I'll do one more example. It's just to show you different possibilities. If I wanted to change this, rather than pay your bill to view payments, I can just go ahead and go over the page. And then once again, for this, I'll just choose the actual payments page, which will be all the way down here. I'm just search for it just to make my life a bit easier. Payments. And once again, if they go ahead and press it, it'll take them straight to their actual individual payment page. Cool. I'm not going to do it for either ones, but you can even do this such as external links. So I'll give you one more example. Why not? If you go over to the view shared files, which is this third one, you can see I can put it as a page, I can put it as an email, but I can even automatically put it as a phone number. So let's say you wanted them to call you, you can add your phone number here. And another cool thing about it is you can actually add it to your phone. So whenever they press that button, it just automatically rings up that number. They can actually give you a call. Or you can even put a Calendly link here and just have it automatically redirect them to a Calendly page, just changing this to book a call. You get the idea. This is kind of the main page to build up for now. So just to kind of re-summarize everything, we have the dashboard, which is a quick overview of the different platform and navigate quickly to different pages, such as the My Project page. The My Project page is kind of a summary of the actual project, which shows different information such as the project tasks, the project retainer, some different meetings that I actually had over time, and different project tasks split into specific sections. We have completed tasks and past meetings. Once again, there's so much more you can add here, but we'll just leave that for this example. Then we have a project task, which is chosen the different tasks that are actually associated to that specific project. A key thing about this is that it only shows the tasks that actually been assigned to them specifically, which is very, very helpful. And then we have the My Meetings page, which shows them the different meetings that they're actually taking part of. And if you open this up, you can see more information about the meeting, as well as a button that automatically allows them to join the meeting. And then we have the payments page, which just shows them different payments that they've done over time. And then the need help page, which automatically redirects them to a Calendly link when actually pressed. That's very good for now, guys. Now it's time to actually move on to the individual pages. Now, the individual pages, there's a bunch of different types of individual pages which perform different functions. But in this example, we're going to be creating 3 different types of individual pages. The first one is going to be a task page. This is where the client can actually see different information about the tasks that are actually being completed. The next page is going to be a meeting page. This is going to be a page where the client can actually interact and see different information about any upcoming meetings that they may have. And then lastly is going to be the payment page, which is where the client can actually click in an individual payment and see different information such as the payment date, different payment links, different invoices, and different things like that. Yeah, meeting individual pages are very, very important, and there's so many different things you can do with them. But the key thing to kind of remember is that these are the main function of the application. It's how your users are actually going to be using it. So it's very important we actually take the time out to make them properly, because this is where most of the interaction is going to happen. Don't get me wrong, the main pages are still very, very useful. However, most of the interaction is actually going to happen in these individual pages where your users will actually be using the application. So it's important that we take the time to make sure it's as clear as possible for them to actually utilize the data and edit it in any relevant way. So let's go into actually building individual pages. All right, cool. So the first individual page we actually want to create is the task pages. Now to do that, I can either go in the task collection, or I can just go in this collection view within a project kind of main dashboard. So if you open this up, you can see we get taken to the main task page. At the moment, there's a bunch of information here, which is kind of cluttered all over the place. It's just a big mess, a random collection, and it's not really, actionable in the sense that if someone was to come here and actually try to understand some information about the task and actually try, maybe update it if necessary, it's very, very hard for them to actually do that. So we're going to be shaping this up a bit and creating different tabs in the project page so it's actually usable. Now, depending on how you actually want to structure your client portal, it's important to decide if your users or clients, I should say, will actually be using these client pages, or if it's something that they're just going to be overseeing client pages. If they're just going to be overseeing client pages, then they won't necessarily have to edit different things. However, if you actually require them to add different files, maybe add different screenshots, or even manually add different notes on the client page, then that's when it becomes a bit more complicated, because you actually need to give them edit access to the different sections. Now, in this case, I'm going to make this as a display of information rather than having them edit different pages, but they can go over to the comments, which is like going over here, and add any necessary comments or notes as a client. But I'm still going to rearrange this to make it look a bit nicer. So I'm going to go back to the edit mode, and as you can see, there's so many different things we can actually work on here. But for now, I'm just going to zoom out a bit, so it's a bit easier for you guys to see. I can actually get started working on this. So I'm not against this kind of main bar at the top, which is backlog in progress or complete. Maybe the only thing I actually want to change about this is don't let them actually edit it, because once again, these are clients. They don't need to edit whether the tag is backlog in progress or complete. So I'm just going to switch on the disabled edit for users. Next here we have a little highlight. Now I'm not against the highlight, however, I think the information I'm showing right now is a bit irrelevant. So I'm going to go ahead and add the start date. Rather than the start date, I'm going to add the created at date, and I'm going to add the last updated date as well as the due date. So this will give us an indication of when the task was created, the last time it was actually updated, and then the actual due date. And within there, I also want to add the task type, because I think that will be relevant. Cool. So at the moment, it's not really formatted. So I'm just going to go over to the due date and make it as a default, so it all fits in one nice bar. And at the moment, these dates are kind of time and the actual date, which I think is all right, but I think it's a lot easier to actually manage if we change it to a relative date. So if I go all the way back to the created date, for example, I can go ahead and change that to a relative date rather than default date. So rather than having it be the 21st of the 6th, 2024, it says 3 months ago. And I'm going to do the exact same thing for the actual due date just by going here and change it to relative date. Same exact thing for the relative date, which is updated at 2 days ago. I'm also going to go ahead and reword this, which is last worked on 2 days ago. And then for the actual creation date, I'm going to say started 3 months ago. Perfect. Cool. So I'm happy with this. Now we can actually move on to this section right here. Now the main thing I want to add is actually the task notes, because that'll be probably the bulk of this actual action. So for this, I'm going to go with the fields. I'm going to hide any of the other fields that are not the task notes. I'm going to hide the task name, the relevant links, the task type, and the assigned employee collection, and just include the task notes. But rather than have it as a single column, I'm going to make it 100% rather than 50%. And I'm also going to enable the form options to be a rich text editor. Now, at the moment, it's just a display of information, right? But if as a client, I come in and I can actually edit it, then it gives me the options to add different things like bolds, bullet points, numbers, even checklists, different things like that. Which, once again, if your client is editing the different notes and you actually expect them to actually use this, is a lot more valuable. And let's say you wanted to finish, you actually finish editing different things, you just press done, and it goes back to a view where they can't edit it without actually pressing this. And I will say, guys, if you don't want your clients to actually edit this, all you have to do is go over to the sections of the actual task page, and then where it shows the edit button section, you can just turn it off. So then they can't actually edit information, they can just review it. But in this example, I'm going to leave off because I think it might be valuable. Cool. So that's it for the task notes. Now we can move on, and I actually want to include the employees. Now I don't need to show the assigned project because this is a client portal, right? They're always going to see the assigned project. But I do want to include a collection of the employees actually assigned to this. So for that, I'm going to go over to collection. And then for the list type, I'm going to choose employee. And the important thing is, at the moment, this is showing every single one of the employees, which you don't really care about. I just want to show the employees actually assigned to the task. So similar to what we've done in previous records, I'm going to go over to options and go to filter. And then for the relative filter, I'm going to put assign employee collection. So now it's really going to show us employees who are actually assigned to this task, which in this case, there are none. So for this, I'm just going to try to see if there's another task that actually does have employees.
So let's see this one, for example, that actually does have someone. And if we scroll down now, we can actually see this only shows the employee that's actually been assigned to this task. I do want to clean this up a bit, so I'm going to go with the fields, and I should see a lot more things. So first, I want to add a profile picture. So I'll scroll all the way down to the user, and I can actually turn on a profile picture, which in this case there is none. However, if we go back to my database and I'll quickly upload one, so you can actually get an idea of how this looks like. If I go over to the employee, we can see employee 4 doesn't have a user. So I'm going to go ahead and actually put it as this guy right here. If I go back, now we can see they should have a profile picture. Oh, this test. If I just add a random profile picture, just like that. Perfect. I'm going to rearrange this a bit just to make it look a bit nicer. So I'm going to put the profile picture first, then the actual name. The start date is not really relevant. The end date is not relevant, but the department and the role is relevant. So I'm just going to leave it as that. Cool. Let's go ahead and actually just change this a bit. I'm going to go ahead and add the profile picture name, and I'm going to go ahead and change this to a circle image maybe, or maybe even inline image. I think it looks a bit better. And then we can actually make this a bit bigger, so we'll make it large, I guess. So at least they have an idea who to work with. But the only thing I want to change here also, if I go back to general or options, sorry, I'm going to change this to none. So it's not a page, and it just shows all the relevant employees are actually assigned to this task. Let's go ahead and give us a title as well. So we put assigned employees. Perfect. And once again, this shows the relevant employees to the task. I don't want to show if it's empty, so I'm going to go over to options, and we can select this hide component if empty. Alternatively, you could also go to visibility and add a condition that only shows it if it's not empty, but in this case, we'll just leave it as that. So that's the first kind of set of things done. Once again, guys, this is a client portal, right? We just want to see the different information from the task. So I think the only thing we should actually add to ask to the actual task pages is the relevant files and the relevant links. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and add another details tab just by adding this little plus button. And then if I find the actual details tab, which is right here, I'm going to move it up one. And then if I go over to fields, I can go ahead and add the relevant links and the relevant files, which are right here. Perfect. I'm going to make this 50-50 each. So we're going like that and going like that. And in this case, I do expect my users to be uploading any relevant links, any relevant files. So for both of them, I'm going to enable inline editing. Now, all inline editing actually means, it basically means they're allowed to actually edit this without having to press the edit button. And I'll show you what this actually looks like. Let me just go ahead and actually swap this just so it looks slightly better. But if we are over here, and we go back to the done view, now we have a nice clean task page where we can see the different information about the task, the progress stages in, when it was first started, the due date, when it was last worked on, any task notes, and then if you want to upload a relevant file, you can just press this button and it'll automatically allow the users to upload the relevant files. Same exact thing for the relevant links. They can just go ahead here and automatically add any relevant links just like that. Optionally, you can also allow them to edit it, so they can press this edit button, and there they can go into the information about the task notes and add any relevant information. Just by going like this, and then you can edit this text. And as soon as they're done, let's say they want to create a checklist or they just check this out, then go ahead and press done, and that's pretty much it. Cool. So that's the first individual page done. Now we'll move on to the meeting page. Now, once again, we can do this from the meeting page right here. Or if you go back to my project, we can just click on any of these meetings and see more information. Now, this is going to be a bit more interesting because this is where we're going to introduce a slight variety of buttons. Now, like I said to you earlier, when we actually move on to the additional touches, which is what we're going to do after the data permissions, we're going to be adding a bit more buttons, record colors, different things like that. But we can start experimenting with it here just to give you an idea what that actually looks like. So I'm going to go once again and leave this bar at the top. I'm not against it at all. But once again, what I'm going to do is just disable user edits because they shouldn't be seeing different things that's not relevant to them. Now, within the actual date section, which is once again the highlight section, let's include some nice information. So we can go in different things such as the meeting date, the actual meeting type, and then the duration. And what I actually want to do here is add different things such as the meeting link. So I'm going to go ahead and add it, but you'll see we're going to turn this into a button. So first is go ahead and do something we did in the previous step, which is making it default so it all fits in one nice line. I am also going to change the dates to relative for the date of the actual meeting, and the actual duration, I'll leave it as that. But now the only thing I want to change for the meeting link, I'm going to go back here, and I'm basically going to change this from a default link to an actual button. So in this case, it doesn't exist, right? And I'm sure we can find another meeting that actually has a meeting link. But if I wanted to have a meeting for this, I can put join now, and now it will allow the user to automatically join the meeting. Now, I don't necessarily want to show this if it's empty, so I'm going to have a condition where it only shows a specific field if the meeting link actually exists, just by going over to meetings, scrolling down to meeting link, and then selecting the operator is not empty, which in this case it is empty, so it won't show. But if we try go to another meeting, so let's see, we can go back here. We have this one right here. It does have a meeting. So as you can see, if I want to join a meeting, I'll just have to press this button and it'll go ahead and take me to the relevant meeting page. Cool. Let's keep on going. Now, once again, similar to the last thing, I'm going to add a little text volume for the meeting notes so they can see any relevant notes about the actual meeting. And at the moment, it's showing us a bunch of information which you don't really necessarily care about. So I'm going to hide the meeting name, I'm going to hide the duration, I'm going to hide the meeting link because we already have it over here. And I'm just going to change this to notes, make it full. And for the form options, I'm going to enable rich text editor. Now, once again, I'm not going to enable inline editing, which basically means they can edit it straight from here, because in most cases, the clients will actually need to edit the meeting notes, but they do have the option to press an edit button if you want it. If you don't want them to actually edit anything, all you have to do is actually press on the page. And then for the actual options here, if you scroll down, you can see show edit button. You can go ahead and close that so now they can actually edit information. Now I'm going to do a similar thing I did last time. I want to actually show the assigned employee. And then I also want to add a little notice if the meeting's going to pass, and you'll see what I mean in a second. So firstly, for the assigned employee, it's already kind of set up the collection for us. And if you go with the options, you can see the relative filter is already there. I'm going to do a very, very similar thing I did in a previous step. If I go over, I'm going to hide most of the fields. And the only thing I really care about is the actual role, the department, the name. And then if I go with the user, I should be able to also get that profile picture just by going like that. Perfect. Let's go ahead and just rearrange it slightly. So I'm going to go over here to the user. And in this case, there's no assigned employee just yet. However, if I just switch over to another task, you can see this task actually does have an assigned employee. And once again, I'm just going to clean this up a bit more. So if we go back to the actual roles, first thing I'm going to do is hide this. I'm going to leave it as none. And then we're just going to rearrange the fields so it just comes together a bit nicer by having profile picture first, the name. I'm going to remove the start date and I'll leave the department and the actual role. But the only thing I'm going to do, I'm going to change the name by removing the label and changing it to a large, which in this case, none of these guys have profile pictures, but obviously in your example, they would actually have real profile pictures. I'm also going to hide the new employee button because the actual client doesn't have to hide the name employees at any point. That's something that happens on the back end. So I'm just going to go ahead and actually remove this just by going over to options. And for the add new record button, I'm going to go ahead and turn it off so they can't actually add new employees. Now I'm going to go ahead and remove their assigned contact because in this case, it will always be the actual user if they can actually see the meeting. And the last thing I want to add here is just to give you an idea of what you can actually do here is I'm going to add a little notice. So for that, I'm going to press this plus one right here, and then I can go over to the actual notice function. I'm going to bring it all the way to the top. And the main purpose of this is to show if the meeting is in the past, right? So I'm going to add the notice all the way to the top, or let's say one below this, just to make it look a bit more aesthetic. And then for the title, it's going to be this meeting is in the past. And if I had a field that actually showed the meeting recording, I could also do something along the lines of check out the recording here. And then for the recording URL, I can just input it as any one of the fields, just like going over here, just like I could do with the meeting link, for example. However, we don't have this in this example. The main purpose of this is just to show that there actually is a meeting, right? So in order to do that, I'm going to go to visibility and I'm going to set a custom rule that only shows this notice when the meeting is actually in the past. So for that, I'm going to go to custom rules, and for the data is going to be the actual day of the meeting. And then for the operator is going to be is before or equal to, and then the actual value is going to be a relative date, today's date, and then now. So now it's only going to show us this actual notice if the meeting is in the past. Now, if you look at the date for this meeting is 1 month ago. So in this case, it will actually show us. But if we go to one of the later meetings, so by scrolling all the way to the right, for example, this one is in November, I go ahead and press this, and now it's not going to show me that notice because this meeting is not in the past, it's in the future. Just an example, there's so many more different things you can do here, but now we've actually gone ahead and set up our second page with a button to actually join the meetings, the different notes that we can actually edit and actually show the assigned employee. The last thing I actually want to show you guys is the payment page. Now, I will say this individual pages that we're actually carrying out are not too complicated. There's so much more things you can do with individual pages. Just to give you an example, if you go over here, you can add different things such as action buttons. So for example, if I wanted to automatically pay this meeting, I go ahead and press that and it can be to a Stripe link or any relevant invoice, different things like that. We can also add different tabs. So at the moment, all the different individual pages we've done only have one tabs. But if I wanted to, I could also press this plus button and I can add different tabs within the individual page to show different information. Once again, not completely necessary for this example because we're keeping things very, very basic. So you can just copy and paste this in your agency. However, there's a ton of different options on different things you can actually implement. Now for the payment stuff, I don't want to do anything complicated, guys. This is going to be super uncomplicated and very, very easy to actually copy. Firstly, I want to actually remove the link client because once again, if it's coming up in a client portal, then there's no need to show the link client because it's always going to be the same client every single time. I am going to leave the invoice, but I'm going to go ahead and change this to maybe 50% so it doesn't take up the whole space just by going over to the width and change that to 50. For the payment day and email, I'm also going to remove that. And the only thing I mainly want to show is the actual amount, the date, and that's pretty much it. Guys, I'm kind of realizing there's not much purpose to this payment page apart from maybe the amount, the invoice, and whether it's paid or not. You could potentially add different notices if that's relevant. But for now, I want to focus more so on the different additions and data permissions. So I'm just going to leave this for now. Press down. Let's have a quick overview of what we've already done. So we've created the main dashboard, which basically allows the user to navigate quickly to different sections. We created a project dashboard, which shows the overview of the project, some different stats, pie charts, different things like that. We've created any completed task and a past task. If we open up any of these up, we can see more information about it. In an organized way, you can see the task, when it was started, the due date, when it was last worked on, any relevant task notes, and then the relevant files and relevant links. We can see all of our meetings in the kind of client calendar. And if you go ahead and press this, we can go ahead and see more information and automatically join the meeting just by pressing this link. And then we also set up the payment page where we can see all the different payments and I can come in. Now, one very, very important thing I want to show you guys is that the fact that this is actually linked to the backend of what your employees will see. So for example, if I go over to my project or project task, in this example, we can see all the information for this specific project, right? But if I go ahead and switch this and I go over to an editor view, for example, or even an admin view, doesn't really matter, I can see all the active projects in this example. So if I go ahead and choose a random project, so we'll go ahead and choose this one right here, we can see this information about the task. I'm actually going to go to team admin view so we can now find a specific project. So if you go over to projects, we need to find the one that's actually been assigned to the specific client, which I believe is this one right here. Yeah, with employee 4. Perfect. So if you go ahead and find that Jones Lee project, which is the same project that we're actually dealing with on the client side of things, we should be able to see all the different tasks. So just right here, we can see all the different tasks for that particular project. And if I go ahead as an employee, right, and I, for example, click this task and I actually go over to the edit button and I edit different information. So this is what I edited, and let's say I move it to in progress, and we can either add a little comment, this is my work, and send that. If I now go back to the client portal side of things, in the exact same client portal without doing anything, so if you go ahead and close this, we switch this to the client view, and we go back to that same task that we just edited just by going to the project tasks, and I think it was this one right here. You can see I can automatically see the edits of what the worker's actually doing. And if I go to the comments, I can automatically see the comments. Now you could optionally hide the comments, but you get the idea. The point I'm trying to make is the very, very kind of important fact of this system we're building is that it's going to be automatically linked to your project management system, which is important because you don't want to spend any time manually updating information because it's a bit irrelevant and will waste time, especially at scale when you're dealing with a bunch of different clients. It will take too long to actually update every single information in your portal manually. So it's important to have everything linked in one place, which this client portal actually does. All right, guys, so we've gone ahead and actually set up individual pages. Now you actually want to go and set up different data permissions. Now, like we've done throughout this whole process, we've set up different filters. Filters are more so of a quick patch for the problem. They're not a real fix. It's kind of like when you're cleaning a room and you stuff everything in a wardrobe. You are fixing it. It seems messy, but in reality, the back end is very, very exposed. And if a client really wanted to, they could find different information about different clients, which you definitely don't want. So what we're going to do instead, we're going to set up different data permissions. This is very, very important when we come to the different user roles, and it's basically based on the actual users. So we're going to set up different permissions where clients, for example, can only see their relevant project, or for example, where editors, which is one under the executive employees, can only see the relevant projects they're actually assigned to. For now, we're mainly going to focus on the project side of things, so the client side of things, apologies. So if we go over to the actual data, and I will open up any single one of these, so we can start off with tasks, for example. If I go with the data permissions, just by pressing this little button right here, I can go ahead and enable permissions. Now it's only going to allow us to actually edit the permissions to specific user roles. So for example, if I go ahead and press this, and I want to go ahead and assign different permissions to different users, at the moment it's allowing us users and tasks. I'm going to go ahead and actually create a new user role. And for this one, it's going to be applied just to clients. So I'm going to go choose that and remove the user. So the key thing I want to say here is that clients are only allowed to have access to their specific tasks or tasks that are actually assigned to the project. So I'm going to go ahead and set a new rule. And then for the task, I'm going to scroll down to the assigned project. I'm going to put is one of, and then for the value is going to be contact, assigned project right there. So now we just set it up so on the back end, the client that's actually logged in will only be able to see the task from a project that's actually assigned to the specific meetings. So if I go ahead and actually just press this and I'll save it, even if I wanted it as a client, I couldn't access the other tasks. So if we go back to our application for a second and we go over to the tasks, A second ago, you probably saw it, right? When we actually reloaded the page, you could probably see a ton of different tasks. But now, no matter how much we try, we can only see the tasks that have actually been assigned to our specific project. And having a filter there just kind of increases it, but it's not really necessary. If you have the data permissions, you don't have to have the filter. If you don't have the filter, then you definitely need the permissions because it's more secure. I'm going to do the exact same thing for the actual project, the meetings, and the payments. So for that, I'm going to go back to my database and we'll go one by one. For the project, firstly, I'm going to enable permissions and I'm going to add a new permission. And for this, I'm going to once again change it to just clients. And for the actual client permission, I'm going to go ahead and disable this and add a new rule so that the actual project and scroll all the way down to the actual contact collection is one of, and then the logged in value is going to be the contact ID. So now it's once again just going to show us the project or show the clients the project that they're actually assigned to. I'm just going to go and save that and do the exact same thing for meetings. So I'm going to go permissions, enable permissions, and the new one for clients. Go ahead and change this for clients. Disable this access to all records, and then I'm going to meetings, and if I scroll all the way down to assign contact is one of, and then for the logged in user, I'm going to go contact and actual ID. Perfect. Save that. And the last thing I want to do is payments. Now I'll do it for payments. I don't remember which one we actually used, but for now I'm just going to do payments. The first one, permissions, enable permissions, add a new permission, and this one's going to be for clients. Disable this. And now we only want to have access to the payment where the link client is one of, and then just enter that contact ID. Perfect. So now we really secure our app. No matter how much our client tries, I don't know why they would, but let's say they do, they can only see the information that's actually relevant to them. Now, this is very, very important. And yes, we did it just for clients at the moment now, but you can just replicate this exact same thing for different employee levels in your agency. So for example, or editors will only have access to the specific clients that they're looking after or the specific projects. Customer success managers only have access to specific projects, different things like that. It's one of the things that makes NoLoco stand out in my opinion, because most of these different tools like Airtable, for example, don't have as in-depth data permissions where you can basically have the ability to not share an entire database with the client, but only things that are actually relevant to them. Cool, guys. So we've gone ahead and actually set up data permissions to make our application clear. The only thing I want to do here is add any different touches. Now, I'm not going to be going too depth in this, but there's a bunch of different things you can do, such as adding different buttons, different highlighter colors, amending different forms, adding a domain name, and making it PWA, which basically means it's a progressive web app where you can actually install it on your phone as an application. And I'll add a screen recording here just to show you what that actually looks like, or even have it as a desktop app on your actual laptop. Now, one of the reasons why I actually love this is because it makes it seem so much more official. Imagine if you actually just brought in a new client and you tell them, oh yeah, just download the app. Obviously, it's not exactly an application, it's a progressive web app, but still, it kind of just reinforces the client that cool, they're working with people that really know what they're doing and reinforces that decision to actually have them buy with you. So in order to actually do that, it's very, very simple. You just want to go ahead and go to your application. If you're using a local, obviously, and you go with the settings, and for the actual to turn this on, you should go to progressive web app, and it's literally just as simple as actually turning it on. In this case, I'm not going to because I haven't published my app. But if you wanted to and you did all these different steps, all you have to do is turn this on, and that's pretty much it. You can also connect your custom domain. So at the moment, it's just noloco.com. But if you wanted to, you can add a subdivision of your domain. So for example, we have app.fluxomate.com. You can have whatever you kind of want, which once again just makes it so much more official. Now, I do want to show you how to add different things like record colors and different things like that. So for example, if I go over to project task and I go ahead and press edit, I can go ahead and add different record colors depending on the specific conditions. So for example, if I scroll all the way down to options and I add a record color, I'm going to make it green if a task is completed by going over to green. And for the filter, I'm going to put the actual status is equal to, and then dynamic value turn off and completed. So now you can see all different tasks in the completed stage are green. And if I go ahead and move this, for example, to completed, it's going to go ahead and move to green. The only thing I want to change, just to give you another example of how you can actually do this, I'm going to make it red if it's delayed. So I'm going to put red, and for this is going to be the actual due date is before or equal to, and then relative dates, today's date now. And it also can't be completed because that doesn't make sense. I'm going to go project task, the actual status, and then scroll up so you can actually see is not equal to, and then complete. So now it's only going to become red if the task is delayed and it's actually not been completed, or is not equal to, sorry. So now it only shows you that if the actual task is delayed. And if, for example, I move this here, that task is not delayed, so it will become red. That's one of the ways you can actually use record colors. The last thing I want to show you is actually use different record buttons. Now, there's so much you can do with record buttons, guys. I'm not going to cover the whole thing here, but just to give an example of what this actually looks like. For example, if I go back here and we'll stay in the project task for now because it's already here, and I want to add in a different record button, I can go ahead and press this plus button right here. And then for the action button, I'm going to name this complete and actually change this to success. And you can make a modal, which basically means a form pops up to confirm it, or you can make it one click. In this example, I'm just going to leave it as one click. And then you can have different notifications like a confetti. And then also the important thing is add different actions. Now there's so much you can do here, and there's so many options. You can even send a webhook to mate.com to trigger more complex automation. But in this example, I just want to update the record and actually move it to complete. So if I go over to the actual status and I press edit, and I'm going to make it a hidden value and just change it to completed. Now, if I go back to the viewer side of things, you'll see the complete button. And if we go ahead and press that, it's going to have some nice confetti and automatically move it to complete. This is a very, very basic version of these buttons. I mean, listen, guys, there's so much you can actually do here. There's a reason we use Noloco in actually building these different systems for our own clients, because it's simple for them to actually maintain by themselves at the end of the program. And it's so intricate in terms of the different things you can do in the customization you actually have. However, I hope this gives an example of how you can actually use these different record buttons. And just for context, guys, these don't just apply to cards. If I want to do, I could even have the record buttons here just by going over to edit. And because it's a task, I can go ahead and actually turn this record bar on, and now it shows up at the top of the page. There's so much you can actually do here, guys. The possibilities are literally endless. Oh, cool. I think we've done great progress in actually building our white label client portal. The only thing I guess I have to show you, and I don't remember if I showed you already, so I'm just going to make sure I have. If you go to settings and we go to theme design, we can also customize the different themes. So I can change it to purple, make your brand colors. You can also enable light and dark mode. And most importantly, if you go to app settings, you can upload your own logos, favicon images, and even demo logos to really make this a white labeled application for you. Cool, guys. You now know how to actually build a white label client portal. Now, there's a bunch of potential next steps you can actually add, but the main thing we need to do to make this much better is adding automation. Now, automation will allow you to have a really intricate client portal that's actually scalable, because at the moment it's just a blank sheet of paper. There's still going to be manual processes you need to do, for example, when you add a client, add a different task, different things like that. But there's so many automations you can actually create. So for example, let's say a new client gets onboarded, you can preload the client portal with different tasks. Let's say a client books a meeting, you can add a different specific task for the meeting. Let's say a client reaches a certain stage in the client journey, I don't know, you can send a notification in the client portal to actually tell them to book a meeting or complete different tasks. There's so much you can do with automation, and honestly, you can make a beautiful client portal. But in my opinion, if you don't add some sort of automation within it, then you're wasting a lot of potential there, because it's a increased addition you can add to make this so much more streamlined. I'm not going to be going over specific builds in this example. However, if you want an example of how you can actually integrate automation into your client portals or any sort of internal platform you can actually create, you can check out this 2-hour video where I actually created a sales pipeline. First half was doing something similar to today, where I was creating a sales pipeline on YouTube, and the second half was actually creating different automations, linking it to Noloco, which is once again a massive game changer, guys. But that's pretty much it, guys. If you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe. One thing I will say, guys, is that client portals are a small part of a complete operating system. So if you want a course, which we call the Scale Proof Roadmap, going over a step-by-step guide on how you can actually do this from scratch, then I recommend you actually join the Scale Proof Hub using the first link in the description to actually get access to the Scale Proof Roadmap. This is the step-by-step guide on exactly how we set up Scale Proof systems for our own clients. Within there, you have about 39 different modules, 5 different stages, 1,200 minutes of content, and about 450 different examples that you can actually just implement in your agency. This internal platform side of things is just one of the 5 stages, guys. I mean, this is extremely detailed, and if you get lucky enough to get your hands on this, and we've given you a massive opportunity here to get access to this completely for free. It's not going to cost you anything. So if you actually want to be able to access that and go over the Scale Proof Roadmap in your own time to set up scale proof systems in your agency, which will allow you to take on more clients at scale without ruining your service delivery, then you can check out that first link in the description to get free access, guys. Apart from that, like I said, don't finish your learning here. Having a client portal is just a small part of it. You still need the project management system, and you still need a sales pipeline. So you can check out this video right here to give you indication how you can build an automated sales pipeline, which is already linked with automation within the platform. Like I said, automation is going to be a massive game changer. So if you're not interested in a sales pipeline, I recommend you still watch the second half of the video. So let's say hour 1 to hour 2, put it on 2 times speed, obviously save yourself some time, like I hope you've done for this video. And that will give you a great indication of what you need to actually add to your client portal or your project management system in general to make it a bit more automated using different things like mate.com and Zapier. But apart from that, guys, that's it from me today. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe. All the free resources from this video will also be in the first link in the description. So feel free to make the most of the resources we actually use for you guys. They're there for a reason. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and leave a comment in the description, or you can also leave a message in our actual community. There you get one-to-one access to myself and my team, so we're there to actually support you guys. Hope this video has been nice and clear. It's been a pleasure actually recording this video. I like doing these longer build videos, so if there's an interest for that, we can continue this series on and actually build a fully custom operating system over the space of about 3 months, right? We got the project management, we have the sales system, we have the recruitment system, and now we have the client portal. So there's a couple more things we actually need to add to make this a really functional operating system. So that's the aim of this series. If you guys like this, make sure to leave a comment and let me know, and I'll put more time and resources into continuing it and making these videos as best as possible I can for you guys. But apart from that, guys, that's it from me today. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye bye.